Obviously Fight Talk, episode 101. We are joined by MMA Fighting's Chuck Mindenhall to talk all the latest stories. We'll be recapping UFC 221 with Brendan Dorman, and me and Rob will be breaking down UFC Fight Night 126.
I love you, man. You say something like this for me, and now I say you. I love you. See you soon, boy.
Welcome along to obviously Fight Talk episode 101. That was Yoel Romero doing what only Yoel Romero could do. This is Noel O'Keefe and obviously Fight Talk, and I'm joined as always by Robert Palin.
How are you, man? How's things? How was your week off? How was the birthday?
Week off, the birthday, the wife's birthday.
Yes.
How was your birthday? It was your birthday.
Yeah, I know.
That is secret until I see
that's
it
what
on
when I come back into work, everyone was like, I didn't know it was your birthday.
Yeah.
Kept that a secret. I don't like to give it away, you know.
Give it away.
It was actually good though. Didn't really do anything,
What
but it was
age
good.
is he
26.
He's only a pup. An absolute pup. 26.
I think. Yeah, 26.
Happy birthday.
I actually have to calculate it up sometimes, but it's 26.
Because you're an idiot. Yeah, wife's birthday was very good. Nice meal out. Little bit of music. We couldn't do too much because she's just over 6 months pregnant. So you can't be going out drinking
Bombshell.
and popping.
No, we know that already, don't we?
But I think we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, good weekend down in Cork. Cage Legacy. Sold out Cage Legacy in Cork.
They all came to see you.
Yeah, that's it. They knew I was on show. Nothing to do with any of the fighters. Let's go see that fella from obviously Fight Talk. A little bit of a tip of the hat and an honour the weekend. I got to commentate with the alpha female, Katrin Costigan.
Very nice. How's that?
Yeah, it was very good. I had to do the first 4 or 5 fights all by me Toblerone. And I seen Katrin there and I was like, Decky, get Katrin Costigan to commentate with me. And he was like, yep. And she loved it. And she was a little nervous starting. But knowledge is power, and Katrin Costigan is seriously knowledgeable.
How do you commentate on your own? Give us a little example.
Welcome along to Cage Legacy 6 here in the beautiful Rochestown Park Hotel in the Rebel County, County Cork. We are now in the featherweight division, where we have Fighter X fighting out of the red corner, taking on Fighter Blue. In the blue corner, your referee is Mr. Decky Larkin. A touch of gloves, and we are underway. Perfect.
And then
punched him in the face there. No, I was saying I'm going to create a Scouse co-commentator.
Oh, yeah.
And go, big shot there, Landon Chris. He fucking zegt him, mate. He needs to get fucking up. Get up off the ground. So I'm like, oh, Chris, live broadcast. You can't be cursing Chris. Fucking clocks him. But I said I won't do that. So I kept going with
probably a good decision.
Yeah, drawn out introduction, but shout out to our sponsors. Fight Star Ireland, the fighter's choice, everything you need under 2 roofs. Go check them out to MMAmix.com. They're obviously good because they're with obviously Fight Talk, and to feelsupreme.co.uk. Go and get 10% off at the checkout by using Fight Talk. Get you 10% off for all your CBD oils, all your words I can't say, help you out. But Rob, this week we're going to look back, we're going to look forward, and we're going to talk the news. We're not going to do OFT quickfire this week because we're going to be talking all the stories that we want to talk about this week, and we're going to be joined by the MMA Fighting and the Beat and the Ringer, Chuck Mindenhall. Right. Chuck joining us yet again. We're delighted to have Chuck on the show. We're going to be looking back at UFC 221, where we're not saying he's the best. We're just saying there's nobody better, Mr. Brendan Dorman. You'll only hear him this week, though, because Rob, he has one job. It's to press record on the camera, and he didn't do it.
It's press record on the audio and control levels and blah, 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 blah.
So he controlled the levels. He pressed record on the audio, but he never pressed
record
on the video.
I done most of the things.
Most of the things.
Most of the things.
And Aiden, this one's for you.
He's drinking water. He's drinking water.
Refreshing H2O. Yeah. And myself and Rob will look ahead to UFC 126 coming up this weekend, and we'll just touch briefly on the Bellator.
126?
Is it? 126, yeah, Fight Night.
Fight Night, alright.
Fight Night, what did I say, UFC? UFC Fight Night 126.
It's very confusing.
And we will touch on the main event of Bellator 198 as well. So let's start with the man in the hat.
The man in the hat.
Chuck Mindenhall. Back in OFT. So welcome back to obviously Fight Talk, and we are delighted to say we are now joined by MMA Fighting and the Ringer, Chuck Mindenhall. So Chuck, thanks a million again for coming on to obviously Fight Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas. Sorry I couldn't make your last one, right? It's congrats on 100, right?
Thanks, man. Yeah, no problem. But yeah, it was good. Yeah, it's good.
We're old age men in podcasting world now.
Yeah, starting to see some gray in there.
This guy, not me.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
yeah, you're fine. So I want to throw in something me and Rob were talking about last week as well. And I was like, oh, we have to talk about this when we have Chuck on, because I'm interested to see. It's just my opinion shared with Rob's. But the UFC of late, it's almost like they're showing short-sightedness. It's almost like they've taken the glasses off and they're not seeing too far ahead. Seemingly like running around like headless chickens, constantly trying to add pointless titles to cards and stuff like that, just to add to the attraction of the card, and not really thinking of the long game going forward. Do you think that there's some sort of truth in that type of opinion or thought?
No, I mean, I agree 100%. It's been a little bit of a shift in the paradigm, you know what I mean? And we've seen little traces of this, obviously, going back last year. I think a lot of times you expect to see them change course and go back to the way they were doing things, but each time there's some kind of problem, like a card is going to fall out, or there's going to be, somebody falls out with an injury in advance. You take the structure and you lessen it by a little more by putting you plug somebody into the role. For instance, we were talking about doing this July card and possibly having an Amanda Nunes versus Cyborg super fight. Well, who knows if that's still up in the air now that she's going to be fighting here at UFC 122 or 222. A lot depends on that. So you're never sure. Like they one thing which would have had its own problems, but then they overcompensate and they do something else, and you get the star power gets spread too thin. There's too many cards. A lot of the things that are going on at once don't add up to foresight anymore. So I feel like it's always just there's 11. You got 10 fingers, 11 holes on the boat, and they're just always kind of plugging the holes. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the summer shapes up, if they really get back on track at all, or if they even want to at this point.
Yeah, look, there's definitely outliers, and there's fights that have made sense that have been made, but it seems like, to me, and kind of what you said was that it's like you don't know what's next ever. Yeah. It's like you don't really know what the next fight is for the champ. You don't know where logically things go, because it seems like they're just trying to make any fight they can, trying to make the biggest fight they can. It doesn't really matter, regardless of weight classes, regardless of rankings. It's just they're trying to throw shit at a wall and see what sticks, pretty much.
Yeah. I missed the day. I was talking to somebody about this. I kind of missed the days where it was very simplistically. This is before the rankings and stuff, but when you could simplistically look at just a general consensus of who thought should be the #1 contender, and that was always a great jumping point to figure out who would be fighting the champion next. It was just very basic. You might have one monkey wrench in there that would sneak up and maybe get that spot. It was always justifiable. We're in the age now where we're not really justifying matchmaking so much as trying to wrap our minds around it. And that's always it's just a shift in the paradigm, man. It's like one of those things that I think we have to get used to, but you also have to, as a journalist and as a fan, I think you have to start to say, do I agree with this or not? I need to voice my opinion if I don't, or make sense of it, you know what I mean? And make a big deal of it. Because right now, man, I mean, it's not like it's gone crazy, but the whole Conor McGregor was able to kind of get special allowances, and I feel like residually we're seeing a lot of the other fighters want those kinds of allowances, want entitlements and things like that. Not all of them draw like Conor McGregor. So you have this wide range of perceptions and nuances and ideas within the sphere now that so much of it doesn't mesh. And UFC has to kind of get back a hold of it and really sharpen their philosophy and their identity again. I feel like they need to reestablish their identity, either use the rankings and the contenders the way they're supposed to be, or just say we're not doing that anymore. You know what I mean? We're going to do the fights we're going to do and just operate off that model.
The one that stands out for me as the complete left field, and I know you spoke about it actually on MMA Beat this week, was Woodley Diaz. Like, to come from like when you look at like RDA, probably one of the best years of his career, certainly the best since moving up to welterweight, obviously. But you look at the fights he's had, where he is clearly by far the #1 contender in that division. Yeah. And then a guy who, his last fight in that weight class, he was beaten by a lightweight at that weight class. He's not really a welterweight himself. And all of a sudden, he's getting, it's pitched that he's going to get Tyron Woodley. And you're there going, this Like, when do we stop? And it's funny because I had the same mentality as you, which was quite funny about it. I'm going, this is disgraceful, but I'll watch it. Like, it'll be a great fight.
Right.
But, yeah, we sort of almost have to bring some levelness to it and go, no, this shouldn't happen. It has to be RDA.
It's so that particular one, man. I don't know why, because I think the Diaz wagon is kind of hitched at this point. He was always kind of a draw, but he wasn't an earth-moving presence within the UFC before the Conor McGregor thing. So you start with that and you think, is he the kind of star, that can draw on his own? Well, that's the big intrigue for me going for his next fight, regardless who it's against. But then you take into account the last time we really saw him at 170 pounds against a legit 170-pounder, he got ragdolled pretty good. It wasn't a very competitive fight. And neither one of the last couple that he had with Roy McDonald and the Sun Gun, they were both very one-sided kinds of fights, and it convinced anybody who was watching, who really pays attention, that this guy shouldn't be competing at 170 pounds. Well, now we're several years removed. He's been on the shelf for I don't know how many months again. Really, he's only fought Conor McGregor, Michael Johnson before that, and then he had a big break before then. I mean, we're looking at a very small sample size of who he is at this point going forward, and you look at a guy who's he's traditional. He's not been great against bigger-bodied wrestlers, especially wrestlers in general. And you think, how does he even compete in this fight? Forget about the meritocracy. Like, how does he even compete in this fight? And I know a lot of people can always say, well, that's why they fight. You never know what's going to happen. But in my mind, I wouldn't have interest just on the most basic level, which is just I don't see it as a competitive fight. And then you get into the whole aspect of why you have a guy, RDA, who cannot do more than he's done to earn that title shot. You have a guy ready for that shot. Why would you even mess with this? And that's where they get very confused. So I'm like, you have RDA, and it sounds like actually Dana White, I don't know if they gauge sometimes. I don't know if they plant these things out there just to gauge how the public will react. But Dana seems to be kind of not altogether for the idea, so hopefully they get it right and get RDA in there for that shot.
Do you almost feel that the way the UFC are matchmaking and all the super fights or kind of cross-divisional fights they're doing almost takes away from the fights that we should be really loving? Like, when Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic was announced, everybody should have been like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah. But the first thing that a lot of people thought, what I thought was, oh my God, another super fight, another cross-divisional fight. And we shouldn't really think like that. That should be, the first thing we should say is, I'm excited for that because that's an amazing fight.
It's just there's so much going on at once. And we know these people now, maybe it's because of the, just how social media works, but we know these people so much now that we know their politics, we know their gripes, we know their money situations to an extent, we know how the UFC has wronged them in the past. There's so much thinking that goes into every single title, or not even title fight, every single match that's made. So we feel, there's either a sense of guilt to it, guilty pleasure to it, or there's this overriding like, wait, this is one I should care about. And you have to kind of figure that back out again. The old paradigm was that, you had to clean out a division. This is always what we're told. Well, this guy has to clean out a division for us to have a super fight. This is why super fights never happen, because the business is to replenish contenders, right? Like, you're always getting new contenders up. Well, this is that rare situation where Ngannou was about as good, I thought, as you could get right now from Miocic. He went right through Ngannou, and very impressive. Same night, you have Cormier, who's basically doesn't have, unless you want to do that Gustafsson rematch, he doesn't have a big-time contender right knocking at his door. So you kind of think of it and you think, this is perfect timing for this fight, especially given that Cormier, being a former heavyweight who's been as good as he has, won every fight except for the John Jones, and those have asterisks. So you're sitting there thinking, this is a pretty epic fight, but you have to put all that math back together again. And that's what's weird about today's sport. There's so much external thought and so many external factors, and you have to kind of go back through it and say, like, you have to find that little muse again, that little kindling to figure out why you want to watch certain fights. This one's pretty obvious, though, right? Like, I feel like it only took me a couple of minutes to be like, you know what, that's an awesome fight. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Out of all, we talked about the summer card where they were going to do TJ DJ, Nunes Cyborg, and DC Stipe, and I was like, I agree with two out of three of them fights. I didn't agree with TJ and DJ because TJ's just won his belt, and there's plenty of fighters in that division. As you're saying, you used to look back and go, you have to clean out your division. Like, you could argue a Dom Cruz fight. Jimmy Rivera has to be going, what can I do to do a fight, the win streak I'm on? So for me, that was the one fight that I felt, come on, let's pull back and let's actually have a division. I just, this is the thing for me, is that I think it's what Rob was saying. It's the super fight has lost the appeal of the super fight because nearly every card they're making super fights and they're not so super.
I 100% agree. When we used to talk about a super fight, we were always talking about guys with these ridiculously unbeaten streaks. Like we were talking about Anderson Silva, who hadn't lost, you know, going back since he started the UFC. He never lost in the UFC. You're going against GSP, right? Like we're thinking of GSP who hasn't lost in years and years. And you think the crazy novelty of putting those two guys together is one of them will have to lose. And that was inconceivable. You know, it was inconceivable. And the same thing when John Jones came along, when the reverse, you're kind of thinking of John Jones against Anderson Silva. And then later when it was Cain Velasquez, you think sort of the same thing with Cain and John Jones. Those were super fights because you couldn't, it was inconceivable that either guy could lose. You had to like contemplate, one of these guys is going to get his arm, one of them will lose, which was novel. These days, I don't know if it's just the parity or the lack, you know, the number of parts, the lack of promotion, whatever it is, there aren't a lot of those out there anymore. I mean, Conor McGregor obviously is one of those guys. If he defends his belt, like he could, if as long as you have a guy like Max Holloway, for instance, could be a guy point. You might have a super fight if both guys can defend their title a couple times, but they'd have to do that. I completely agree with TJ Dillashaw. I almost feel like that's more of a psychological swipe at, you know, Demetrius at this point. Like, hey, we need to find the guy who's going to beat this guy. Maybe just to reshuffle the deck down, you know, at flyweight again, get some different things rolling again. And Dillashaw being a bit of a name represents something attractive to them in that match. But I completely agree. Under every other circumstance, that fight doesn't make sense. He just won his belt, and there are guys right there who could fight him. So it doesn't make sense. But by no means is that a super fight. The closest they would have, I think, would be those other two that you mentioned. I think you could actually make the case that those are super fights.
Yeah, just one more point and then we can move on. Even when you just brought up Anderson Silva, it just reminded me of something. Remember when he moved up to light heavyweight for the first time and he fought, I think was it, I can't remember who he fought.
James Irvin?
James Irvin. Yeah, the first time. That felt somewhat special. And in this day and age, it doesn't really mean anything.
No. That one was particularly cool because if you remember, they were counter-programming the Affliction show. And so they booked that fight, and that's why they threw it together. But James Irvin, at that point, I recall, had a couple of good showings recently. So he was showing his hands, and you think, whoa, wait a minute, going against a bigger guy, this should be a lot of fun. And obviously it panned out to just be another showcase for Anderson Silva. But I agree, there was real appeal to seeing guys at that stage, especially a guy like Anderson Silva, play around in a different playground for a minute because that partition came down. These days, I feel like it doesn't take much. There's so much business aspect to it. And there's so much like, you know, with the advent, you know, having a featherweight division now, having bantamweight and all those, I mean, those guys play around in those divisions a lot more than they would have when there was the WEC divide versus the UFC. So a lot of that stuff no longer matters. I mean, look what Bellator is doing. Not that it's the same, but it's a heavyweight tournament with like three heavyweights and like a bunch of stragglers. So it no longer has the same appeal, like all the shifting.
Do you think though the lack or the push of super fights is stumping the growth of fighters that are on the undercard? As in, it's almost like the UFC now are trying to say, hey, these are all super fights, these are big attractions, there are superstars. But by not letting the lower contenders fight and work their way up to a title, they're missing out on new superstars.
I think that the big problem is fans used to, you know, fill in the blanks as what a super fight was. Fans did. It was the fan feeling. There was a family affair when Lorenzo Fertitta was there, and I felt like the fans, that was a palpable thing. Interest, certain things, or you feel momentums colliding. I felt like that was always a big deal. And UFC right now, it tells you something, but a lot of it is hollow. It's not the same thing. The fans are not filling in that color. They're not filling in that momentum. They're not filling in that enthusiasm that they used to. So there's a couple of problems there, and I feel like this has something to do with that new ownership group. They just haven't done enough to earn that hardcore fans' trust. Like I feel like it became almost exclusive in a weird way. Which the sport always had that very red hot center of fandom, which gave it the full heat. You know what I mean? So that was like everything that happened. And then everything that came towards that center was what they wanted. They wanted bring in as much fanfare as they could from the outside, all the casuals and stuff. These days, man, I don't know. I feel like what they're selling a lot of times is they're trying to tell the fans something that's not real. And a lot, you know, We have good BS detectors in the sport, man. I mean, when they're telling you something and you know it's not real, you point it out. And there's a lot of that now. It's just so much more hollow than it was. And they need to figure out how to reacquaint themselves, I think. Billy, from the top down to the guys coming up. Like this UFC 222 card just happened. It got panned pretty universally as being a bad card. But then you kind of look at it and you think, well, there are some guys on this card that should have been getting circled and highlighted, and they should have been doing some promotion, because that's really what the business is, to bring new contenders into the fold, bring new enthusiasm. And I just don't feel like they're accomplishing it right. Not as much as you'd like. And I think one thing that just has to happen is they need to get back to just letting the fans, that original fandom, getting back to that, kind of harnessing it and bringing that back in, because to me that was like the addiction of the sport originally. It was a communal affair, man. Every time there was a match, collectively we wanted to see it. And right now that's really not happening.
Do you think there's a risk? I think it's a silly question in some way, but do you think if this was to continue for as long as the new ownerships have it, that the UFC is at risk of burning itself out?
Man, I don't think so. I think that because they're such, they're business people and they're going to figure it out. Like you said, I think their big problem right now is it's just too myopic. They're just looking at, let's plug in this hole and then we'll worry about that. We'll worry about tomorrow. And I feel like that they got to get back to kind of having more foresight in the sense of like, those contenders are everything. That's your whole scaffolding. That's the whole system. So you got to build those contenders. You got to believability that guy can actually dethrone the champion, which we know can happen these days with anybody. But you got to sell that. Like, I thought that Francis Ngannou fight was a lot of fun because there was huge doubt as to what Miocic could do with him. Yeah. That's what you want. You want a contender where the momentum is so big for the contender that it looks like that the champion is the one in trouble. And I feel like they need to get back to all that stuff. This game is very psychological, and it's anytime you're talking about a literal dictation of wills, two guys fighting, you gotta capture it in its essence. And I feel like right now it's too much of a hollow product, man. I mean, I think they'll correct it, getting back to your original thing. I think figured this out, but it becomes acquainting themselves to that original fan, like the reason people watch fights, coming back to the original psychology, and then operating off of that again.
Because I have to say, I watched before the UFC at the weekend. I was just flicking through documentaries, and I came across the UFC 20 years fighting for the generation, I think they call it, and it was like walking down memory lane. It was so nostalgic, and I was like, it's not like this anymore, man. It's a different machine now,
Yeah.
And that was 5 years ago. We're celebrating 25 now. It's like, how did it shift that much?
Yeah,
5
crazy
years?
actually. Yeah,
it is insane.
Yeah.
So if you were to place them, if you were writing a school report for the UFC and it's end of term, what would you be writing as a teacher's note for the UFC?
Man, I mean, honestly, what I just kind of said, I just believe that they got to get back to the roots. They got to do both things. They got to try to advance the product, and obviously they have a huge debt that they need to fill in now, and that's going to change some thinking. But I think that their only route forward is to go back to how they made the original stars, man. And you can't just expect people to come along and have the effect. There's too much consciousness around it now. There's too many people thinking business-wise. There's too many politics involved. You gotta get back to the original romance of what fighting is, I think. And I would like to see it. Like, I'm seeing little flashes of it, and we do know that people do come around and enthusiasm lifts right back up as soon as there's a new star in this game, and there's new enthusiasm, and it helps when there's several. So I feel like the UFC has to get back to just identifying them. You know what I'm saying? Identifying them and getting their cards to matter, become events again, and bring up those contenders. So it's like, it really just comes back though to come and get warming their hands again to that original nucleus of that fan base that was during that boom period of maybe 5 to 10 years ago. That whole stretch right in there.
You've done a piece as well this week as well, Chuck, cheating in MMA. Basically, do it because it pays off. It is true though. It was quite. As I was reading it, I was like, Jesus, he's so right. Like, when you think about, and he only had.
Isn't it sad?
It is.
It's sad, yeah.
It is. But it gives you the upper hand, and I think the big one that you pointed out in it as well. I know there were some vicious ones, but the cage grab. Why not grab the cage that one time when you're almost down? Because the ref isn't going to take a point off you there and then.
100%. I think it was the Jacare Romero fight when he grabbed it to alter, and then he fell on top of him. And I was like, see, and there was no punishment whatsoever to that. And you think, hey, man, do anything once. And you might even do it twice, because the bottom line is, if you're doing damage to them with an accidental, headbutt or an eye gouge or an eye poke, or you actually kick them in the groin, they just say, "Hey, are you okay? All right, keep going." I just feel like at some point you got to say, I like that there's a sportsmanship to this, what we're watching, but you could see guys who are just like, hey, let's look at, like, the Bill Belichick, football coach idea of loopholes and thinking. You say, like, how do we exploit this to its fullest? And why not do some low grade cheating throughout this, just to think our advantage, especially the cage grab, because that could change the complexion of a round. You know what I mean? Or the fight. So it's weird when I started to think about it, because I was watching it on this minuscule level of UFC 222, and it really or 221. It only really came in because there was a very obvious eye gouge, and it confuses what I meant by paying off. Well, he might have been finished in that position, right? Like, he could have been finished. He gets out of that position, and he ends up getting $50,000 bonus for making it a fight of the night. Well, that paid for him to cheat in that sense, didn't it? I mean, so it's when you see people being rewarded for bending the rules a little bit or knowing the loopholes within what's happening in there. It's a funny way of looking at it. I didn't like writing that piece, but I tried to make it fun, because I honestly look at it and I do think it could be like a drinking game these days, because there's always that guy who kicks someone in the groin, or like, and it goes unpunished. So until I don't know how they address it either, though. You know what I mean? I don't even know what they would do to address it, other than you can't, in a 10-point muscle system, you can't just dish out, take points. You can't do it. It's too much. So something has to happen, though. You know what I mean?
It's something that we actually have a referee who comes on with us regularly here. He's one of the big referees in Europe here, Daniel Mulvahedi, his name is. And Daniel we posted something up on the wonderful world of Reddit not too long ago, and people were like clamoring for how amazing Dan was, because he took a point for a fighter just continuously outstretching the fingers. I think he eye poked once, but then he warned him about it, and then he took the point. But it is something that needs to be changed. But at the same time, like what you were saying with the football analogy, is it not a wily old veteran, like a veteran's trick to do something like that, little bit of veteran savvy that'll allow you to do something? Like, I think if you take that out of the game as well, be it any sport, but in fighting as well, it sort of takes away a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And let's imagine that this is small controversy. That eye gouge was pretty bad, but generally speaking, if there's an eye poke or a groin kick, we don't even talk about it. I mean, and there could be 5 of them in a night and we don't even mention it. Yeah. It's way more controversial to take a point, So these guys are under huge scrutiny, and they really do alter a fight. Especially, let's say that a guy kicks a guy in the groin. It's hard to prove intent. Did he do it on purpose or not? And I think that's one of those things, like, if he takes the point on that very first infraction and it alters he's going to get skewered for the next week in the media, and maybe beyond that, depending on the size of the fight. So you can understand how they're like, hey, we're going to give you every opportunity to correct this, but they warn them. And honestly, it's not a perfect thing, but I agree with you 100%. It's kind of an old veteran's trick, or just even the shrewd fighter who knows an opportune time to do something. You see it all the time. So I think that at least 50% of the time, it's not accidental. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I think there's only one drinking game in modern MMA that would beat that, though, and that is every time they go, woo! You have to do a shot.
I was very sorry to hear that in Perth, man. I was like, not there, too.
Yeah. Your colleague, Luke Thomas, got a bit of heat for his tweet about the Great Barrier Reef and wooing.
I didn't see that one.
He said, I'm glad that the Great Barrier Reef is dying with the wooing that's going on in Australia.
He fires first and worries later, man. He doesn't crazy. He already, on one of the MMA beats, he went off on that too. Like, I didn't realize. I was kind of, I'm just reading as like it's still kind of a funny novelty joke thing, but mildly annoying. He's like ready to shoot people who are doing it. So it's bothersome. But I will say that now that he's brought it up and I can't help but hear it. It's getting a lot more bothersome.
Oh, yeah. Luke Thomas has made it worse, if anything. We should blame Luke Thomas.
He brought attention to it. And honestly, I don't know to what his reach is, but MMA fans, like I said, we're a collective. And I think that there's I'm sure that some of those people doing it heard his rant. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Oh, 100.
Yeah.
I'm shocked there's not a Ric Flair, Luke Thomas t-shirt meme you're at yet made. It reminds me of the World Cup that took place, the soccer World Cup in South Africa.
Yeah.
You had to turn the TV off.
Yeah.
You sounded like you were living in a beehive.
I couldn't stand that either. I actually brought that up. I brought that up at the, and they're like, "Oh, that's cultural. That's cultural." And I mean, to me, man, it's any annoying noise is annoying noise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we gotta wipe out the woos. And we didn't have a moment. The last time it was in Australia, it went dead silent. And some Aussie guy just shouted at the top of his voice, "Kick him in the bullocks." Remember that? And the two fighters even laughed. I can't remember who was fighting. It was quite funny. Chuck, it wouldn't be an Irish MMA podcast without bringing up Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. Have we got to throw this out as absolute trolling and it's never going to happen? Or after the first time, do we have to give this the rounds?
We have
of
avoided this like the plague.
I don't even know, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, I see them. I can't tell if it's just trying. I mean, obviously they have enormous fan bases, both of them.
Yeah.
So when they go at each other, I feel like though it's this sort of confetti, this confetti crowd of like sheep that just kind of latch onto this every time something happens, and it's like it's annoying for me because every charm that they had. They already put in they've already left it out there. It's already happened. There's nothing left for that. I don't want to see Floyd Mayweather. I don't want to see him compete in MMA. And even if he did, I'm like, you're gonna put him against Conor McGregor. Yeah. I mean, Conor McGregor is legitimate. People forget that Conor McGregor is legitimately one of the best guys we've seen come in the sport in the last 5 years. So it's he stood in there and he's done some crazy things in the sport. So he would just obliterate Floyd Mayweather. So even the flirtation of it, it's just so stupid to me. And honestly, I wish it'd go away. But as far when people get to that size of business and they know that there's this, disposable, that many people with disposable income are going to talk about it, I guess they'll continue that flirtation. Personally, I don't want to see it, and I get tired of it. And actually, Nate Diaz is not far away from joining that fight too, because he's joining in. I kind of appreciate it to an extent, like kind of trolling both those guys, but. It's all losing some steam, and but that fight is still there. That's still a viable fight they could do, Diaz and McGregor. But as far as Mayweather, man, it's got to stop.
Yeah, I agree. Stop. And I even we said will we do it to Conor because we have literally said we're not talking about it. We're not talking about that. It's absolutely absurd. I'm sick of it. It's happened. It was terrible. Let's move on. And
people who are tired of it are really tired of it. If they get mad at you for talking about it now.
It's aged very, very badly, hasn't it? Very, very badly.
Terrible.
Yes.
No interest. Chuck, again, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here with us. Obviously, Fight Talk. We love chatting with you. Keep up the great work. Keep up the great writing. I really look forward to reading all your articles when they come out. And thanks a million again for joining us here at Obviously Fight Talk.
Guys, look forward to the next time.
Cheers,
my man.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
The man in the hat, Chuck Mindenhall. If you don't know who Chuck Mindenhall is and you're an MMA fan listening to us, you started on the wrong way. You really did. But go check out
the weird way.
Yeah,
you found the weird way in.
Go on to MMAfighting.com and The Ringer and check out Chuck's writing. He just has a unique way of looking at scenarios and writing, and he's excellent. And we really appreciate him giving us the time here and obviously Fight Talk as well. So I really do enjoy chatting with Chuck. And he loves us, and he's going to come on again. As he said.
Loves us.
Yeah, we're never talking about Conor again. Ever.
Well, Conor Floyd or just Conor in general?
Just Conor. I just can't do it anymore.
No, it's actually physically draining, isn't it? Like it comes up and you're just like, oh Jesus Christ.
I'm saying it to him. I'm going, just as well. This is the last thing we're saying to Chuck because I know he's going to be going, fucking McGregor, Mayweather again. But yeah, Chuck Mindenhall, thanks again. So let's move it on. But let's move it on by looking back and let's recap. UFC 221. It went down at the weekend. It was in Australia, as you heard, with Chuck Mindenhall. The Woo Boys made it to Perth. UFC 221.
Brendan Dorman.
So welcome back to obviously Fight Talk, and if you're watching on YouTube you can see, and if you're listening, sure, I'm about to tell you, we're not saying he's the best, we're just saying there's nobody better. We're joined by Brendan Dorman. D-Man, what's
you're
up?
feeling like a pimp, ladies, go on, brush your shoulders off. Yeah.
Brendan, I have to start by a special request from my brother, who is a Washington Redskins fan, who wanted to say, ha ha ha, fuck the Pats.
Tell him, ask him what he thinks of the cover 2 defense and or the 46 formation, and then we can talk, because I don't think he knows much about football.
My brother is very, very avid
Into American football?
fan. Yeah, ever since we were a kid, yeah. He's gone to see the Skins a good few times now.
Well, I've seen the Patriots win this many. I've seen the Red Sox win this many. The Celtics. I've seen about 15 titles in my lifetime, so I'm good. I don't care. Okay. I like one-on-one sports. Tell him I said it. I love him too.
There you go, Mark.
Tennis.
I did ask.
Tennis.
But let's look at the weekend, and this man should be praised. He has broken the streak of the interim title. Yoel Romero has freed us from the interim title.
Conspiracy. He done this on purpose. He missed weight on purpose and won, so nobody would have an interim title.
He's fucking Jesus.
It seemed like he did.
Yeah.
Fuck. Did you see it the stare-in when they were really close? Luke kept saying I'm a professional or something, and I swear Yoel at one point said something like I did it on purpose, or I don't know.
That's weird.
He's out of his fucking mind, that guy.
He's a crazy motherfucker.
He's out of his fucking mind.
He
was doing things in the fight that make me think that he's like fight smart, you know? Mm-hmm. It's very odd. He's such an anomaly to me. I don't get it.
Soldier of God.
Soldier of God. But what did we think of the fight? What did we think of the tactics? And what did we think of the second shot? Oh, God. But anyway.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, technically, I mean, no ground anything. Not even an attempt, I don't think. Right? I don't think there was one attempted takedown.
No,
right?
I don't think so.
No.
Not even one.
No, not one.
That, to me, was going to be the fascinating part of the fight.
Yeah.
And it's weird because Luke was kind of baiting him with it, and you wondered, well, does he think he has better stand-up? Is this a psychological thing? Is it legit? Because I thought it'd play out interestingly, because Yoel went into Jacare's guard, you know? I don't see him fearing anyone's guard if he didn't fear his. So I thought that would be interesting. Standing up, I just think, based upon Luke's comment afterwards about him being made of steel and the fact that he couldn't hurt him. I mean, he hit him pretty clean, and Luke's hands looked better. Did you notice he was holding him higher?
Yeah. And his jab looked really good.
A little more, and he was jabbing well, which is what he kind of didn't do so well in the past. Yoel's just got crazy defense. He wasn't getting hit real flush with anything, and he never seemed at all hurt. I mean, he was doing some weird hobbling, I guess, with his leg, and there's a bunch of shit floating around whether or not that's even real.
Yeah.
Who knows? But that lull you to sleep and then destroy your, next 2 years of your life thing that he does it's fascinating, really. Here's what I was thinking right after the fight, like my organic thoughts were, another division's fucked up in a way. It doesn't feel complete because the path to the title has been so fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And then you got to wonder, how good is Whitaker? Is he just that good? Because Yoel's beat everyone else pretty convincingly. The Kennedy fight is the one kind of anomalous one in there, because Kennedy hurt him pretty bad, and then that stool thing was complete bullshit. You'd have to be Yoel or like his, grandma to think otherwise. That was like blatant fucking cheating. Yeah. Without that, he beats everyone kind of handily. And the power, like if you notice that left hand, it didn't hit anything substantial. It hit him like kind of on the shoulder and maybe a little bit on the head. Yeah. But it was the force of the left. But he jabbed into it, which was really nice. He did like a piston. I always talk about like piston pumping. So he goes 1-2 on the jab and then changes levels. But he came over like looping with that left, and then that uppercut when he fell was like, oh my God.
That was like. Okay. It was like Luke Rockhold owed him money. Yeah. That second shot was like, where's my money, bitch? Yeah, it was serious.
I was waiting for the ref to go like, world star! Fucking, that was savage, man. Savage.
That was one thing that we spoke about ahead of time, was the way that Yoel Romero fights. He's like, he doesn't really do anything for the first 2 minutes. He just parries and moves and nothing, doesn't throw a whole lot. And then he sprints, and then he does that again, and then he sprints, and then he does that again. And I wonder with the Robert Whitaker thing, I wonder if because Robert Whitaker is coming up from welterweight. Maybe just his sense of, I'm not going to be able to finish these guys so easily, so I'm going to fight really smart, and I'm not going to try rush anybody. I'm not going to try throw my biggest shots. Maybe that's how he beat Yoel Romero, whereas Luke Rockhold was landing some decent shots and Romero was just walking through them, and then eventually Rockhold tried to open up, and then once he started opening up, Yoel landed them big shots. I wonder if it's more of a mindset of Robert Whittaker thinking, okay, I'm not going to go for the finish. I'm going to try beat these over decision. If the finish comes, it comes.
What I'll say is, what I noticed in the Whittaker fight versus everyone else is he doesn't play the patient game at all. He won't play it with him. He'll jab away. And I think Whittaker's, like, Rockhold has some creative strikes, but to call him a creative striker might be pushing it. I think he's more creative on the ground. I actually think he's more dangerous on the ground.
I agree.
He has great striking, but his jiu-jitsu is magical. Whereas I feel like it's a matchup. It's a style thing. Whereas Whittaker's like takedown defense is incredible, but he wants to stay standing. And he has he mixes traditional technique with like modern day boxing technique a lot.
Yeah.
He's an interesting cat, man. And he beat Yoel like after hyperextending his knee, I believe, in the first round.
Yeah.
So
That's
right. Who's gonna make the adjustments? Yoel's like, I mean, they say he's 39, but he's probably 57 years old, made in a lab somewhere. But I think Whittaker beats him again. Nothing from that first fight gives me an impression otherwise. But every other Yoel fight gives me an impression otherwise because he seems to land, you know?
One thing that Michael Bisping brought up after the fight in the boot was Rockhold's kind of tendency to try land that. I think it's like a check left hook, where he kind of slips back, and that's what Michael Bisping... Right hook.
Because he's southpaw.
Yeah, right hook. That's what Michael Bisping caught him with on the counter to that in this kind of similar position. Do you think that that's something that Rockhold has almost made? Because he had a lot of success with that, and now he's having probably some of his worst failures with it as well.
Kind of. But in that position, that would be a terrible shot selection anyway. What I think happened was... Like when he threw that check hook, he was pretty close to the fence. What you always want to do, I don't really have the room to do it, but if I'm southpaw, it would be my lead right hand.
Yeah.
You always want, like, the whole point of a check hook is to be heavy on your front foot and lighter on your back so that you can pivot as you throw it.
Angle,
So the right hook comes out and then my back foot scoots out, and it's a defensive mechanism as much as it is offensive. So you want to do it in open space when someone's charging in, but you always plotting in and throwing jabs. It's not a good counter when you're going closed stance, meaning they're both at southpaw. If someone's jabbing in at you, it doesn't really make so much sense to throw it. You would want to throw it against his left as well, you know? Because against the jab, you don't have any angle at all. He's throwing a jab. Think of it. This is covered up. If you know, he's textbook. So, I guess.
Would you call that at this point a bad habit?
He got caught before that.
Would you call that at this point for Luke Rockhold a bad habit?
Yeah, but I think he goes to it when he's been clipped.
Yeah.
See, when Bisping caught him, his chin was way up in the air. He was holding his hands down the fight.
Yeah.
It was as if he almost underestimated him. But a win's a win, and I'm certainly not taking anything away. Bisping has great MMA boxing. But I think he falls back on habits, and this is the thing I was talking about pre-fight, was like, we were talking about someone's like looking at center of mass and striking low to strike high when what's his name, Jacare won with the head kick. Yeah. I was saying, you know, you go low and you come high, and if Rockhold would throw leg kicks and look down to then throw his, you know, question mark kicks or whatever, but realistically watching that, his fundamentals in his boxing got better, but his footwork hasn't changed. He doesn't break angles fast, not fast enough, whereas Whittaker does that incredibly well. And Yoel, like, Danaher talked about this when he was on Rogan, like, your speed of transition is your most important speed, you know? And that's what he does so well. And his defense is really good. If you notice, if you rewatch the fight, for anyone that does, watch how he was using, like, Tyson-style kind of torso movement the whole fight. So he's a moving target, whereas Rockhold plots in, chin up. I mean, his hands were higher than normal. Okay, fine. But I didn't see much else that was like, oh, that's new for him. He's very athletic, and he's obviously really good. He was outmatched. I never felt like he was going to win that fight.
I'm glad you said it because I picked Yoel. For me, what I liked about the fight, number one, what you were saying with the Tyson-esque coming forward, but the way he was just sort of pawing away and hand fighting and parrying the strikes was beautiful.
Parries everything. But he was like using X-guard a lot, like Winky Wright style.
But what I loved about it as well, and it was actually Jimmy Smith in commentary alluded to it as well, almost like a snake charmer. He was pulling Rockhold into this falseness that I'm gonna come now, and then he doesn't attack. So Rockhold was like, right, he hasn't attacked, and then he'd bring him in again, and he'd start coming at him a little bit, and Rockhold would react to it, and he almost lulled Rockhold in over that 3 rounds because he's done it a lot. When you watch him before, he does that lull. But I thought he was even more patient in this fight, to where he was losing rounds to it, but it was all the plan to eventually allow Rockhold not as be on tick, if you get me, as in he wasn't going right, here's the attack.
It's like
he started faked it 3 or 4 times.
I'll give Brendan a lot of credit here, because it's something that you spoke about a lot on the show and a lot in your breakdowns, is the pattern recognition, and Yoel Romero just doesn't really give you a sense. He completely breaks it. As I kind of said, he rushes, stops, rushes, and it's not like he doesn't have any tell on when he's going to do it.
And I'm 90% sure that Jimmy has watched my breakdowns. He's awesome, by the way. He's great. Awesome. God, it's nice to hear his voice. Yeah. He's just good. He's very fucking good. Yeah. I love that guy. I don't know him personally, but I got we have, the same friends. I use that to describe MVP. The very first time I broke him down was snake charmer. Yeah. Because it's not the same. It's just not, but it's unreadable. It's just totally unreadable. You can't really recognize a pattern that's new. And what Yoel does fight to fight is changes his movement and his cadence. And everyone thinks of cadence as just your strikes, right? You don't want to be boring 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You want to 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Like that. They think of cadence like that. Sometimes cadence is just your movement, your footwork. You can have cadenced footwork. And that's why, remember we talked about Lomachenko's footwork and what we could learn from it, even in MMA. His everything is cadenced, right? So Yoel doesn't give you a speed read. He doesn't give you an angular sensibility read. And he's got good defense on top of all of that. So when you're looking at, when you looked at Rockhold after he got hurt, maybe the second time where where Yoel kind of was flurrying on the cage, he had this look fuck, what do I do? What the fuck do I do? And I could hear Henry, because I know him. I recognized his voice, and he kept saying, keep it simple, or keep it to the basics, or something along those lines, keep it simple. And against Yoel, I don't know that that's the best advice. I love Henry, but it didn't do him any favors, But yeah, 100% agreed with the assessment that it's a pattern recognition thing. Yoel was picking up on Luke's patterns. Yeah. He was doing that well, and that's the whole thing that baffles me about him. It's is he high fight IQ? Is he really smart when it comes to that, and just fucking socially inept everywhere else? He's an interesting dude, man.
What did we think of him going up to Rockhold after? It was like a girl that you just broke up with was trying to talk to you, and you're like, no.
I love you, Luke Rockhold. I love you.
Running into a drunken mistake a year later.
But then he kisses him, and whatever he is. But I was impressed. He also got John Anik down on his knees to interview him as well. Yeah. But
he's a nut job.
Yeah.
He's out of his fucking mind.
That was
that guy's so weird.
Now you just said he got John Anik down on his knees, and I said he's a nut job, which just sounds wrong.
Carl Doran.
I wish I meant that.
But again, I could see why a lot of people... You have this parity now, right? In the division, is that what you're gonna say? You have parity again in another fucking division. Yeah. It's he didn't make weight, man.
Yeah. But it got rid of the interim, so I'm fucking happy about that.
The most pointless interim title fight ever.
Yeah, but the thing about it is he won, and he's won. Dana White even said, I don't care that he didn't make weight, he took the fight in short notice, which there is some credit to that. I don't mind that.
Yeah,
it's down in Australia, so I don't mind that either. Traveling the other side of the world, so I don't mind that. But yeah, interesting, and I think I'd like to see Whittaker Yoel again.
If the UFC are going to make any fight they want to make, what's the point of making weight at this point?
Yeah,
it makes
true.
sense.
Talking about making weight, these guys don't have to worry too much because they don't have that much to cut. Curtis Blades defeated Mark Hunt, and in a way, this fight reminded me a very old-fashioned fight, but it reminded me of Mark Hunt in his early days in the UFC. As in, he was throwing big, heavy shots to try to get the knockout, and Curtis Blades just took him down at will when he wanted.
Yeah, it was a bit longer though. Mark Hunt in his earlier fights,
he'd
get finished really quickly with a submission.
Yeah.
I thought Mark Hunt done really well when he was on the floor, just getting back to his feet at times, especially in the first round, early in the second. But
he did, but it was the real striker.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it looked like Mark Hunt was really chasing that knockout, especially because he hit him in the first round, landed clean.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Curtis Blades, he's got a chin.
Yeah,
he's got a chin because Mark Hunt landed clean a couple of times.
I took away a few things. One, I liked how Blades was unapologetic about wrestling.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Sometimes people are like, sorry I didn't put on the best show, even when they put on a great show. And it's like, it's kind of like forcing a compliment, you know? It's weird. But he was very unapologetic about wrestling. I like that. He's like, I'm trying to improve my striking. I'm a wrestler unapologetically. Yeah. The other takeaway from that, and I'm bringing this up only because of rumors as of late, is like, that makes you realize how high level of a grappler Brock Lesnar is. Yeah. When you watch that fight, because Brock did whatever the fuck he wanted. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, whatever he wanted to. From across the cage, he was taking him down. I mean, it was just absolutely surreal. I don't know if because I followed Brock so long, I kind of have a penchant to always watch him, maybe a little closer than some. But man, that's Mark Hunt's weakness. You get him down, he's improved. He can move. He knows how to butt scoop, but his body's built to have a ridiculous chin and ridiculous power, and that's kind of what he is. And this is the thing that's come up the last 5 times I've been on. There's an evolution again, and there's lulls and there's peaks, and lulls and peaks. That's how MMA's been since UFC 1, I'd say. And right now, he's just kind of, I think time's passing that guy. I love the guy. He's a legend, Hall of Famer probably. But
that's what one of the things I was thinking when the fight ended, and I knew we were going to scorecards. We knew Curtis Blades had won. It was like, Jesus Christ, Curtis Blades, please do not piss hot.
Oh yeah.
Just Mark Hunt is just
he's gonna go ape shit.
Yeah.
But just on the Mark Hunt being there's evolutions there. But just to be fair to Mark Hunt, it's crazy to think he's still being competitive.
Yeah.
With guys like Curtis Blades in 2018 when he started fighting against guys like Big Nog, who's long retired now, and people like that, which is just crazy to think.
K1 back to Ernesto Hoost.
Yeah, this is his second. This is his second career. Well done, 100%. Mark Hunt. Well done, Mark.
He was good in K1. He wasn't like some guy.
Yeah. That's the whole reason why he got into Pride, because they loved his K1 stuff.
MMA Mix shared a video the other day of Mark Hunt. I can't remember who was fighting, but they literally stood in the middle of the ring.
Was going back and forth.
And two of them put their hands down and let them punch him in the face. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it was Ray Seffo. Remember last time we tried to get his name?
I got it this time.
This guy, like, no.
Is it him?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a Ray Seffo fight. They were just standing there, hands down, chin out.
Crazy motherfucker.
Kind of the point to the center of the ring shit, Yeah. Max Holloway style. That was a great fight. What'd you say?
I just went, pussies.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable. Leg kicks, Brendan. Leg kicks.
Leg kicks.
One of the fights, Rob, you called it down to an absolute T. You said he's absolutely going to run through
lamb to the slaughter. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Tie to Avasa. That was just here's a guy to fight and here's a guy to knock out. I really like him though. I really like the way he fights.
Ooh.
Tie to Avasa.
The Aussie.
Elbow. Heavyweight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That guy's a beast.
The name had me on.
He has a Mark Hunt body type, if you want to say physique. But that guy is very impressive. I loved his post fight interview too. It was excellent.
What did he say in his post fight?
His post fight was great.
Yeah. It was. I'm gonna go home, make love to my wife.
That was him. That said it on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's got the Polynesian tattoos and he just had a baby belly.
Yeah.
But one thing that I brought up on the the last show, the live chat, was that you can see that he played rugby. The way he fights, he's just aggressive, moving forward, push up against the cage and elbows you into the face. Not that you do that in rugby, but, you know, the whole aggression.
I'd just like to see some more heavyweights that are in fucking shape, man.
I know, yeah.
Can you just get in shape, please? Jesus.
Tyson Pedro.
That's fucking useless.
Imagine,
you know what I mean?
imagine everyone in heavyweight looked like Czech Congo, but, you know, fought at the level they fought. That'd be insane, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's marketable for one, but that's like, then you become Vince McMahon. I don't care that much.
Yeah.
But when I watch a guy that's got like this giant deflated belly with stretch marks, I'm like, I don't think his cardio's gonna hold up. No, I have a beer gut too, but I'm 38 years old and I'm not competing in the UFC. You know what I mean?
Tyson Pedro.
Wasn't it against you?
I've said it about 3 times. Tyson Pedro with a beautiful Kimura finish. Locked it up standing. Brendan talked us through. It was a beautiful finish.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot more people go for that, and that's a fantastic counter. He was because once your hands are locked, you guys know Kimura grips, right?
Yes.
You just the important is kind of this hand's as important to have thumb in.
Yeah.
Always over the top. So this one's gripping. This one's got to be in that grip, right? Henzo calls it monkey grip, which Henzo says, I say yes. So a lot of times when someone's arm's here, if you can get an overhook here to feed the arm, like if someone's trying to take your back, you can lock up right here. And then all you have to do is roll over your left shoulder and maintain body control and posture up. Usually that's the idea, is you want to roll over and then perk up so that way you can control the Kimura. It was great that the way that he held on to it, because the other guy tried to counter pretty well too. That was beautiful work. Nick Diaz used to do he did like a tutorial on that exact kind of sequence years and years ago on YouTube. But it's very effective, and it's not so dissimilar from the one in Ngannou, except it was more textbook.
Yeah, more textbook.
It was cleaner.
Yeah. Even against the cage, which was nice. The cage was blocking him and still finish it. And
it's a really good escape, even if just to break the hold.
Yeah.
You know, someone's got arms clasped around you, and you can sneak in, get your hand in there, and then lock up. Then you can all you got to do is turn out, because you're 2-on-1 at that point. You know,
Frank
you're
Mir
2
used to
hands
hit
against
that
their
on
one.
guys
It's going to win hopefully every time.
Yeah, Frank Mir used to hit that on guys a lot. I think the Tim Sylvia one was similar, wasn't it? When you broke his arm.
When he got
Nogueira.
Yeah. Well, when Nogueira tried to escape, he re-rolled him.
Yeah, tried deep half and then. Ooh.
Yeah. Frank Mir had fantastic jiu-jitsu, man. For heavyweight, shit.
Hope his jiu-jitsu is on point now.
So you got Fedor coming up?
Yeah.
Last time I saw him, I like Frank, but Jesus.
Yeah. He's been living it up at the all you can eats, I think.
Yeah.
He likes food. He's gone fat. That's
I got that. Yeah.
All right.
I think really people got that. Yeah.
Like, I really like Frank Mir. Frank Mir was one of the lads that, but like, Frank, put the fork down. See what I mean?
This goes back to our point, and I'm not talking about us. We're not fighters. No. Not now. Not anymore. I'm too old. I'll hold pads.
I'm getting too old for that shit.
No, I like sparring and shit still, but I couldn't go 3 rounds, let alone 5. You know, and just if you're a professional athlete and getting paid accordingly, get in fucking shape. Go running in the morning.
You can argue that Frank Mir is at the end of his career.
Yeah.
So Frank Mir was in great shape.
He wants to be Fedor. He's talked about that his whole career.
But I wonder, as in, the fight is only a couple of weeks away, so how much is he going to drop? He is going to look for a long time. I remember years ago there was pictures of when he fought Freeman, remember, and it was showing his gut and stuff like that. And then Frank Mir got in serious shape. Obviously when he was against Brock and stuff like that, he went uber Mir. But he just sort of said, pick things up, and the more you pick them up, the higher the weights go up, Yeah. But I think there's more to it than that.
I think there was some pharmaceutical help for Brock Lesnar. But
we have about 2 minutes because we're on a clock.
2 minutes.
What fights? Let's pick some fights and let's go through them really quickly. What fights stood out to you?
That style bender, Israel, I don't remember his last name yet.
Adesanya.
I watched the film on him today.
Yeah.
I haven't watched his fight, and I have it saved, ready to go to watch. It's on the player. It's on that.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, you got.
People are comparing him to John Jones.
He's
more of a striker.
He's creative.
That has to learn grappling.
Yeah.
Whereas John was a grappler that had to learn striking. So I get it, but you can't call every tall black guy John Jones-ish. You know what I mean? It's fucking disingenuous. It's like every white guy that's ever been in the NBA that came up as the next Larry Bird. Why can't he be fucking, Pippen?
Neil Magny's like the next John Jones.
It's just weird. Like, why does he have to be compared to the most successful black guy? Yeah.
Neil Magny's like
he's a
John
striker.
Jones.
He's a striker learning grappling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like as Rob is trying
I don't
to get
care if it's PC or not. I'm saying it's the truth.
No, because I said remember last week on the live chat. That's what I said. Because I knew if I said that Yoel Romero has similarities to Tyron Woodley, someone would have went, "Oh, it's because he's the stocky black guy. What are you being racist for?"
Yeah, it's not. No, God, no. I mean, like, I'm gonna praise the guy and say how amazing he is. They're both amazing. Yeah. John's an amazing liar, but he's an amazing talent too.
He is an amazing liar. He can pass a polygraph test. He's excellent.
Yeah. So did OJ. So did Ted Bundy.
Yeah. Listen, I will not have you say anything about OJ Simpson. I loved him in Naked Gun. All right. Don't say anything about OJ Simpson. The gloves did not fit. If the gloves did not fit, what is it? What was the thing?
We've gone off the rails on a fucking crazy train 10 minutes ago.
But sorry, Israel, I'm looking forward to watching that fight because everybody's saying it. Great to see Ross
watch his angular sense, watch his hands, his relaxation, and his fucking jab. Oh.
Brendan, I'm going to leave you with a piece of a nugget. I was ring announcing and commentating on a show at the weekend, right? And a fella went in and got a double ankle pick and literally sweeped your man, right? Onto his arse, his bottom, his posterior. And my commentary was, it's not quite Valentine's Day, but he's just been swept off his feet.
It's fucking okay.
That's getting me all the way to the UFC, Brendan Dorman. That type of commentary is what the UFC are looking for.
Oh, Jesus. I just enjoy this because I say things like the F word and John Holmes.
Yeah, John Holmes with a massive cock.
Massive
dong.
Brendan, it's an absolute pleasure. Go and check out Brendan Dorman. His latest breakdown is of Iron Mike Tyson. Ooh. You will hear the silk velvet sounds of Brendan Dorman's voice on this breakdown as well.
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking for those. I fucking hate doing them, but okay.
So Mike Tyson is the latest project and it's up on YouTube. Just find it on Brendan Dorman on YouTube.
Thanks,
type that in. But Brendan, as always, it's great picking your brain. It's great chatting to you. And we'll talk next week, my man.
All right, sounds great. Thank you guys.
Cheers.
As always.
Cheers, man. Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.
There you go. Not saying he's the best, just saying there's nobody better, Mr. Brendan Dorman. So now we've looked back, Rob.
Yes.
Let's look forward.
Let's look forward.
UFC Fight Night 126 goes down this week. Cowboy Cerrone taking on Yancy Medeiros. Let's talk about it. It's fight week, Rob.
Is it?
It's fight week every week, Rob.
But
this week, it's UFC Fight Night 126. Cowboy versus Medeiros. We're going to start it there. It's on Fox Sports. It's Sunday night.
Don't like that. I think you should expect next week we probably won't be talking much about this card because we do work on Mondays.
Yeah,
like
Sunday,
adults.
Very inconsiderate of the UFC. But Donald Cowboy Cerrone taking on Yancy Medeiros. We just said it, Rob, before we hit record today that, man, this is a big opportunity for Yancy. Big name.
Big name. Like,
Cowboy.
You could refer it back to the Darren Till one now. It's a little bit different because Darren Till was not almost unknown, but he wasn't as big of a star maybe as, say, Yancy Medeiros. Not that you'd call Yancy Medeiros the biggest star, but he's been around the UFC for a long time. I think at this point, a lot more people know Yancy Medeiros than knew Till at that time. But, it's still a huge opportunity. Donald Cerrone's always a big opportunity.
Couple of questions. You can answer them. I just want to pose them to you.
Okie dokie.
Is it peculiar that Donald Cowboy Cerrone is currently on a 3-fight loss streak and Yancy Medeiros is on a 3-fight win streak and these are matched?
Yes. Yes and no. I suppose when you compare the names, Cerrone's a bigger name. So I think in certain cases, they're not going to offer a guy on a big win streak a guy on a big loss streak, but it's different when you have a guy like Donald Cerrone with that name. Maybe you don't want to approach somebody and say, oh, this guy's on a huge loss streak, and them to say, oh, wait, I want somebody on a bigger win streak. But then when you say, well, it's Cowboy Cerrone, you're going to take it. So I don't think it's that strange. But yeah, a little bit.
Part 2 of the question.
Okay.
After Yancy Medeiros fought Alex Oliveira, it was on the 2nd of December in what a lot of people put up there as fight of their year. Is it too quick of a turnaround for Yancy after such a hard-fought fight? He was nearly out of there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that one. 2 months.
It's a quick turnaround.
That's a quick turnaround.
For the style of fight that it was.
For the style of fight and the damage that Yancy took, I'd say, that's a quick turnaround. Yeah, I think that's a quick turnaround. I don't think it's going to affect him hugely, but you never know. Realistically, he probably had a bit of a suspension. So I'm not sure what his timelines of actual training was. Who knows? But yeah, that is quick. Actually, I never thought about that.
And now, what do you actually think of the fight? Where do you see this being won? And because obviously Cowboy, as we were saying, 3 fights in the hole. He's in trouble. I don't think Cowboy's the type. Look, Ross Pearson at the weekend was on a 4-fight last week. More so, I don't think Donald Cowboy Cerrone would be close to walking papers for what he's done. But surely he is on a tightrope here.
It's a weird one. It's crazy to see Donald Cerrone at that stage, but he's that type of guy who took all comers that it was probably always going to happen that he was going to go on a streak like this, I don't think he's done. I think what happened with Darren Till was just a display of how good Darren Till is as well. You can certainly say Cerrone's slowing down. Like, the amount of fights that Cerrone has, although he's not the oldest guy in the division, he's getting up there. But then in fight years, he's had so many fights that you have to say that in MMA years, he's definitely up there. So I don't think it's that much of a surprise that he's on that run, just considering the type of guy he is. He is a cowboy. That's who he is. But yeah,
2 of his 3 defeats have been knockouts.
Yeah,
TKOs are knockouts.
Yeah, that's not a good one. But again, look at the guys who he's fighting as well.
Yeah, that's very true. But again, I'm really playing devil's advocate today. Yancy Medeiros' wild come forward style, is that suited to Cowboy, or do you see that Yancy could bully Cowboy the way he's been bullied before?
Possibly. Yancy doesn't really fight that bullying style. He's a guy who will get into a scrap with other guys, but he's not the type of person who will get on top and really put it on his opponent. He's the type of guy who will allow his opponent to get into the fight and look for counters and kind of survive that kind of war. So I'm not sure. I think it does play into Donald Cerrone's style. I think he'll like this type of fight. Someone who's going to come forward and look to finish him. But it's a weird one because Yancy, if you look at that fight against Alex Oliveira, there could have been moments there where Yancy could have got finished. Yeah. And he does leave openings, but so does Cerrone. But I'll be interested to see how Donald Cerrone can capitalise on the kind of openings that he does leave, because I don't think Alex Oliveira had the skill to capitalise on them.
What do you think as well, again, just thinking off the cuff as I'm talking to you, how big of a knock on Yancy's camp is it that Holloway's injured?
That's huge, yeah. He seems to be one of his biggest training partners. I know the weight-wise they're quite off, but like technique-wise and learning, that's definitely... I'm sure he's there. I'm not sure what the extent of his injury. Maybe he can work out a little bit. And he's been obviously working out leading up to this, because Holloway got injured, a month back or so? Maybe a little bit less than that. So, it's still a knock. I wonder where Yancy's training, because I know Yancy trains between the Diaz brothers and there as well. So it'd be interesting to see where's Donald Cerrone training.
Could you be right as well and say, he's on the farm, isn't he, or whatever?
Yeah, because
it's interesting, isn't it? You got Cowboy who's sort of coming down from the high of what he's doing. Their arcs are meeting. Yeah, Yancy Medeiros is ascending. For me, this is a fight. I think Yancy's style here of not, his gritness could lead him to survive what Cowboy can offer, but at the same time, a flip of the coin, I think his style plays into Cowboy. I think Yancy will let Donald Cowboy Cerrone control the tempo, and that's where Cowboy is at his best, when he's allowed lead the dance. Yeah. And if Yancy, I'd hope to think he's obviously, he's clearly done study of his last few fights. Donald Cowboy Cerrone, he's like, Cowboy Cerrone's fight against Lawler was an excellent fight. Like, he was on the end of a decision defeat, but he fought well. Darren Till bullied him, pushed forward. He controlled the pace. Jorge Masvidal done the same thing. He controlled where the fight took place. RDA going back, he just bull rushed Cowboy and absolutely destroyed him like that. So, you know, the blueprint is there. And as Robin Black would always say, if I know this, Medeiros knows this. So there's that. So in a way, for him, his way of winning this fight is to be the aggressive one, to come forward. I don't know. I'm not too sure with their actual heights. I haven't looked at the stats, but Medeiros looks like just a much bigger man for me.
Yeah, well, they're both coming up from lightweight as well. Not, you know, immediate fights, but I mean, they've both fought at lightweight before. But Medeiros does seem like he's way more well suited to welterweight than Cerrone is. Cerrone is very good at welterweight, and I think naturally that's probably his best weight class because he does kill himself a little bit to get down to lightweight, and you can see it at the weigh-ins and you can see it in his performance sometimes. But I think in terms of being able to compete with the bigger guys in the division, I think Yancy Medeiros is probably more well suited. His frame seems bigger. He seems like he's just a bigger man, as you said. But I also think momentum and mindset is something that you have to think into this one, because when you brought up the whole loss streak, win streak, where's Donald Cerrone at mentally? Like he's taken a couple of losses, whereas Yancy Medeiros is probably on the best streak of his career at the moment. He's moved to welterweight. He hasn't lost at welterweight so far since he's moved back up.
And he's beating good names
up there. Whereas Donald Cerrone, he's on a bit of a skid, and how is he going to deal with that mentally? And you have the two guys on two kind of different trajectories going into this one. So that'll be interesting, the mental game. Like if Yancy gets hurt early, maybe he'll be able to stay in it mentally, but will Donald Cerrone be able to stay on it mentally? That's something that people have criticised Cerrone about. So that's an interesting matchup as well.
And if I had to push the pick, Robert?
I'm gonna go with Yancy. I'm gonna go with Yancy Medeiros. I was leaning towards Donald Cerrone for the whole kind of lead up to this, but I just think that if Donald Cerrone hurts him early, which he could, based on Yancy's last couple of fights, he's been able to stay in there and take a shot. Cerrone, not so much in his last couple of fights. So I think if it gets into that kind of scrap, I just think Yancy Medeiros is going to be able to stay in there a little bit longer. But, you know, if this was a couple of fights ago, before Cerrone lost, I think we have a different fight in our hands, and I think you're going to pick Cerrone all day. So based on just current form, based on the last couple of fights, I'm going to go with Yancy Medeiros to get something. I'm going to go with Yancy Medeiros. I don't know what.
You're really undecided in this.
Yeah, really am. Because they're very well matched. You know, really, really well matched. I think Cerrone, technically, skill-wise, I think is a little bit better. Even defensively, I think Yancy Medeiros does leave himself open a little bit more than Donald Cerrone, but I think Yancy Medeiros just can outlast him a little bit more. I think his chin is there a little bit more. I think his endurance is there a little bit more.
So I have the same dilemma as you.
Yeah.
That if we were picking this fight a couple of years ago, it's Cowboy.
Even last year, probably.
Yeah, it's Cowboy. But I don't know. It is interesting to see how much Cowboy is in Jack's wink anymore. You know what I mean? He seems to have gone away from that, and he's up in
his ranch.
I knew it wasn't farm. I knew it was a different version of farm. But yeah, it's. I gotta say, I'm siding with Yancy on this as well, with momentum. The style of fights, how he's won fights, but more so not how he's won, how Cowboy has lost his last couple of fights is what is swinging me. So yeah, I'm going with Yancy Medeiros as well, and I'm gonna go Yancy with a late stoppage. Yeah, it's a main event, so actually I'm gonna go like round 3, Yancy Medeiros. Yeah, it's a weird one because not even late because it's a 5-rounder. It's the type of fight that a couple of years ago you really would fancy Donald against, you know, the type of fighter. Somebody's going to come forward and and he leaves open. Yancy leaves open. Coming forward is how you beat Donald Cerrone in ways. Be aggressive, but coming forward and leaving openings is when Donald Cerrone can do. But look, do a lot of good work. The thing with this is, and this sounds like I'm hedging here, but like Cowboy could come out and look fantastic in this fight. Yeah, and the whole thing we've talked about, we've mentioned this a good few times on all the podcasts you ever listen back, is levels of MMA. Yeah. And I think a year ago, I don't think it'd be wouldn't be unkind to say, I don't think Yancy Medeiros a year ago, you would have put him in a cage with Cowboy. You would have thought, what's this match about? This is crazy. Right now it is. This is the perfect fight. Yeah. This is Yancy Medeiros. Yancy Medeiros gets a victory over Cowboy Cerrone. This propels him. So for that sense, it makes sense. So 2 picks on Yancy. Even though he's not training right now with Holloway, the morale in that camp right now has to be
amazing, absolutely amazing. I know that Holloway recently fell out, so that's going to be a bit of a bump. But just in general, the morale has to be amazing.
Your main event, our co-main event, sees the Black Beast, Derek Lewis, return, taking on Marcin Tybura. Black Beast, his last outing. Exhaustion is what sort of cost him the fight, and he's my thing on this. I'll say straight out there, Derek Lewis suffers with a horrendously bad back.
Yeah,
a heavyweight that does that. Looking at his last fight for me, what I seen watching Derek Lewis this was a guy who was trying to get the fight over and done as quick as he possibly could, because he just didn't. He was in pain. He didn't have it in the gas tank.
Yeah.
And then against Fabricio, he was due to fight, and it was his back as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So his last fight, then Mark Hunt finished him in the 4th round. I thought he'd done exceptionally well to even get to the 4th round. So for me, it's how is Derek Lewis's back? Could he train regularly? Could he train hard to the level that you have to train at to be in the UFC?
Yeah.
That for me is the who's wins this fight. Like, I think a fit Derek Lewis wins this fight hands down every time.
Okay.
But is it a fit Derek Lewis? So this for me, my pick, I'll say it now, is Derek Lewis.
Okay.
But it's Derek Lewis with an exclamation. No, with an asterisk. If
an exclamation mark,
really mean it.
Yeah.
An exclamation mark, no, an asterisk.
Yeah.
With an asterisk beside it, because the simple fact is he injury free? I know all fighters say you'll never go fully fit, but I mean, to the extent that he looked hindered, incredibly hindered in his last bout.
He did.
If he comes out and he's fully fit, I'm picking Derek Lewis all day, and he'll make it a short night. But if not, you gotta fear for him.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same thought process as you. One thing I do like about Marcin Tybura, and why I think it's gonna give Derek Lewis some problems, not to mention that, as you said, Derek Lewis has had terrible back issues. He's retired from back issues. He said he retired a while ago, came back and said his back feels okay, but he had to pull out after that, was it?
Yeah,
he's had issues after he came out of retirement. So, you know, you just don't fix back pain like that. If you say you wish you could, but if you've terrible back pain, and not just back pain, back injuries, that's awful. That's some of the worst injuries you can have, especially for an athlete.
A heavyweight as well.
Yeah, heavyweight as well.
These big guys laying on you.
One thing I like about Marcin Tybura is he's not the biggest heavyweight, but he still hits hard. But he's really good in his feet, as in he moves really well in his feet. He likes to work behind his jab. He has some good kicks, and he has some decent endurance. He got tired in his last fight against Verdum, but he went 5 rounds with Fabricio Verdum, which isn't an easy thing to do. Fabricio Verdum doesn't have the best gas tank in the world, but it's fairly good. And you can see against guys like Cain Velasquez, and of course you can say it wasn't C-level Cain, but you could see against him how good Fabricio's gas tank is. And Fabricio kind of fought his own fight there, although it wasn't much of a grappling fight. It fought at Fabricio's range, really, and Tybura stayed in there, and he looked pretty good. I just think that Derek Lewis, unless he gets it done early, whereas Tybura has a decent chin, I'm not sure if that's the most likely of options. Yeah. I think Derek Lewis is going to have a problem with cardio. I think Tybura is going to be able to finish him. I think he's going to be able to finish him maybe in the second or third when Lewis gets hurt and tired. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Marcin Tybura.
Nice. When we disagree, see, we don't always agree, folks. Next up on the UFC website, as in line, it's a little different to other websites, Topology, but let's go with the UFC since the fights are on the UFC. We got James Vick taking on Francisco Trinaldo Robert. This is 12 against 14.
Yeah, this is a weird one because I read both of these guys very wrong in the same way at times. James Vick, when he was on Tough, I think I watched that season of Tough, crazy enough.
You're a big fan, Rob.
I'm a big fan. He looked like a decent striker, but he didn't really seem that great. But since then, he's gone on a very, very good run. He's beat a lot of good guys. Trinaldo, another guy, he's an older fighter, got into the UFC. And if you look at his record, I'm going to just pull up his record here for a second. His only losses in the UFC recently is to Kevin Lee.
Yeah, before that it was
Mike Chiesa in 2014, a long time ago. And he's beat some really good guys. Norman Park in there, Ross Pearson in there, Yancy
Norman
Medeiros.
Park is questionable.
Paul Felder is in there. And his last fight was Jim Miller, and Jim Miller's obviously getting up there in age, but he's really.
Well, you look at it, main event, Yancy Medeiros, he's beating Yancy Medeiros, Paul
Exactly.
Feller, then he dropped the fight to Kevin Lee. So he wins that fight to Kevin Lee, he might have been fighting for a title.
Yeah, and again, you can look at some of them fights. They were in Brazil. Some of them were decisions. Some of them were a little bit questionable. But he's won the fights.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit questionable. So he's a really good guy in that division, but he's kind of flying under the radar. James Vick has made huge improvements, and I think a lot of people, I don't know about you, and you can let me know, are looking at him as a bit of a prospect at that division.
James Vick, to echo what you just said, these two lads fighting they should call it the underestimated matchup.
Yeah.
I have so underestimated James Vick and Trinaldo. Like Trinaldo, I just always was he robbed Norman Park of a victory.
Yeah.
And I've held that with me dear. That's what, I don't know why, but that's what I've held on to about it. But when you look at his record, when you look at who he's beaten, how he's beaten them, incredibly impressive. Same goes with James Vick. Vick, for me, always looked like almost the awkward fighter or something.
Really awkward,
awkward style. And he'd pull out a win and you're going, where did he get that win from? But then, he beat Joe Duffy there not too
by
long.
knockout, and it was lovely.
Yeah, it was a beautiful finish. So
I don't think anybody was picking him against Joe Duffy either. And that's not even the Irish thing. That was just a lot of people I saw was picking Joe Duffy in that fight.
Yeah. So it is for me. It's two fighters that I've always underestimated. So I'm gonna underestimate one of them again. And for me, it's James Vick here. I thought he looked incredibly impressive in his last outing against Joe Duffy. But also he is on a bit of a roll, a bit of a purple patch as well. Beating Paulo Reyes and Trinaldo.
Who are you talking about?
He'll come to me later. I can't think of his name. Trujillo. People are shouting.
Trujillo.
Yes.
Abel Trujillo.
Yeah, beat him. So he's on a good win streak. Again, I could be just underestimating Trinaldo. Maybe youth is a thing here for me. I think Vic is... I think Vic's about 29. Is he 29, 30? And Trinaldo...
He's up there.
He looks old. He looks older than he actually is, I think. Let me have a look at that. Trinaldo, 39.
Yeah.
He is the oldest looking 39-year-old I've ever seen. But he is...
He's good.
He's legit. Yeah, he is legit.
Good.
But I'm going to go with the Texecutioner.
Okay.
James Vick.
Is this fight in Brazil? It's not.
No.
Okay, I'm going with James Vick. No, I'm actually going with James Vick.
Texas.
There's a couple of things. James Vick his striking has improved so much. When he came into the UFC, when he was in Tough, he fought very in my opinion, Stefan Struve. He was the taller guy who fought behind his jab at times, but didn't really. And recently he has, and if you look at how he dismantled Joe Duffy, very, very impressive. The reach is probably, I think he has a 6-inch reach advantage on Trinaldo. And Trinaldo is a good kickboxer, but he's a good kickboxer when he can get range. I don't think he's going to get range on James Vick. I think James Vick has got really, really really better in his stand-up game. Takedowns, again, he's got much better defending takedowns. He actually has a couple of takedowns in his belt, if you want to call it that. So I'm going to go with James Vick. I think if it was in Brazil and it was a close fight, I might lean towards Trinaldo, but I'm going to go with James Vick. I'm going to say a decision, but...
Love Brazil.
Very nice. I'm going to say a decision, but it wouldn't surprise me if he finished him, and I think Trinaldo has to slow down eventually.
That old man genes. Super Sage Northcote makes a return to the octagon. He's taken on Tuble Guti. I was super impressed, excuse the pun,
Nice.
of Sage Northcote in his last outing. Of course, he's now training out of Team Alpha Male. Mr. Faber knows all about him. But I was very impressed with Sage's last win. It was a unanimous decision, didn't get a finish, but he looked fantastic.
Yeah.
He was mixing up his takedowns with his striking beautifully as well. He's going to have a guillotine on him, that's for sure, now that he's training out of Alpha Male. And I think in some ways as well, Rob, a lot of the pressure has come off Sage Northcote. That Mickey Gall defeat in some ways is going to be such a blessing in disguise for Sage Northcote, because there was so much hype behind him after Dana White looking for a fight. That there still is, obviously, it's Sage Northcote, but he's finished school now, so he was still in school when all this was happening. So he's finished school.
Made the move to Alpha Male.
He's made the move to Alpha Male. So I think this is where right now, like, he has all the natural abilities that you could possibly want. And what's happening now is he's gone into alpha male as this dry sponge.
Yeah.
And they're a big swimming pool of knowledge.
Yeah.
And he's going in there and he's soaking it up every day. And I think you're going to see leaps and bounds from Sage Northcutt from now on every time you see him. So I'm going to go Sage Northcutt, and I'm going to go Sage Northcutt finish.
Well, very good.
Submission.
Very good.
He's going to add a new wrinkle to the game.
Nice.
Just out of alpha male, I just think he's going to be training with them little terriers.
I love the move to alpha male because Sage Northcutt, he's not the world's best striker, but coming from that kind of point karate background, he has some great fundamentals in that way. He has a good sense of range. But I think moving to alpha male and training with those crazy good wrestlers and grapplers and submission fighters is going to do just the world of good to his game. I think being it, because one of the things, if you look at his previous fights, one of the things that he had issues with was he got caught on the ground underneath and he didn't really know what to do from there. When you're in there with guys day in, day out that are wrestlers and are built to be able to keep you down, hold you down, keep position, and you're working on that every day, which I'm assuming he is, because Uriah Faber is not an idiot. He's going to be, pushing him through what he needs to be going through. I think that's going to do wonders to his game. I think as well with Gouti, whatever way you want to say it, if you look at his previous fights and look at who he's lost to, he usually loses to guys who are really good in a certain aspect of the game. Like Chad Lepre is really good kickboxer and he lost by knockout. Olivier Aubin Mercier, really good submission guy, lost by submission. I think in this one, Sage Northcutt is going to be able to be too dynamic on the feet. He's going to stuff any takedowns. Gouti likes to strike for the most part, but he will look for takedowns. He's kind of for me, he's a real all-rounder. He's good everywhere. He's not great anywhere really. So I think Sage Northcutt's going to be able to keep it on the feet and just be a little bit faster, a little bit more dynamic on the feet. And, maybe he could get a submission, drop him, but I don't think he's going to go for a takedown. I think he's going to keep it on the feet and strike with him. Sage Northcutt.
Quickly, because time is of the essence. Your opening card, or opening bout on the main event, I believe, are the UFC still saying that as well? Yeah, is Thiago Alves versus Curtis Millender. This is where you look at Thiago was due to fight Mike Perry. There was travel issues. Remember what happened that you couldn't travel in the States? Something happened.
I'm not sure.
There was like storms and shit, wasn't
it? Yeah.
So he couldn't travel to fight Mike Perry. Then Zach Cummins got injured against him. Got injured in the build-up. Slipped in the fucking bathtub or something, didn't he? Jesus, unlucky Zach Cummins. So Curtis Millender is his third opponent and his third camp. Maybe not full camp because it's only a month after the Zach Cummins fight. But this gun guy, Curtis Millender, he's a champion and former in other promotions outside of the UFC. He's making his UFC debut. He fighting the Lion Fighting Championships, I presume. It was. He was the champion out of there. He's plenty of knockout finishes, KO finishes. He's gone the distance. He's lost a couple, but this is where you would just say levels in MMA. Can this kid roll with Thiago Alves, somebody who climbed to the top and had a title shot? Will he have to do that, or will he have to hang with a new young blood? That's the question. Yeah,
it's a big question. I didn't get to see a whole lot on Millender. I tried to find footage of some out there, but I'm gonna go with, just because we're short on time, I'm gonna go with the levels. I think. Against Patrick Cote in his last fight, he looked really good. Again, another huge break for Thiago Alves, as you said. But I just think coming into the UFC, maybe he'll have them UFC jitters, maybe not. But coming into the UFC, this is a big task for him. He hasn't fought anybody at the level of Thiago Alves. And again, that's not saying that he can't beat him. It really isn't. He could be on that level. But it's hard to predict that he's going to be at that level. He's had some good wins. He had some great finishes. But I just think Thiago Alves... a little bit too much. I think he's going to be able to beat him. Maybe a finish, but I'm going to go with decision.
Perfect. That's the main card. Just quickly before we jump, Bellator 194 goes down this weekend as well. Not going to go through the full card, but the main event is Matt Mitrione taking on Roy Nelson. Meathead obviously coming off the highlight victory of his career, beating Fedor Emelianenko. They fought before, back in 2012. And it was Roy Nelson who won that night by knockout. Do we see anything different?
No.
You're going Roy Nelson knockout?
I'm going Roy Nelson knockout. At first I was thinking Matt Mitrione has a good chance of winning the tournament, but I think Matt Mitrione sometimes has problems with good strikers. And I think Roy Nelson, although he's not the best striker in the world, he has a lot of power. Hard to take down that low centre of gravity. He has a good grappling background.
Roy Nelson has changed his game plan a lot, though, hasn't he?
He's been looking for takedowns. He's been looking at grappling.
Orientated, yeah.
Which could work in his favour as well, because he's an excellent grappler. We always spoke about that. When Roy Nelson is fighting, we say, is he going to go to his takedowns? And he never does. But recently he's been going to his takedowns. I'm going to say he's going to get a finish. Going to clip him. Matt Mitrione has been clipped a lot.
Yeah, you sure he was clipped against Fedor?
He's clipped against Fedor, yeah.
Two of them are nearly out on the ground together.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Roy Nelson, but, heavyweight, it's not going to surprise me either way.
The mad thing is, two of them are 39, Mitrione, and 41, Roy Nelson.
Yeah.
So they're up there, you know. Nelson, I think to win the fight here, just quickly, Matt Mitrione needs to be on his bike, needs to be moving. Nelson has become very plodding, especially after the first 2 minutes of the opening round. If he can initiate the takedown, I think he'll lie on top of Matt Mitrione and beat him up. I just don't see Matt Mitrione getting up if Roy Nelson takes him down. But I have a feeling that Matt Mitrione's reach, I think he has a bit of a reach. He has a nice long jab, Matt Mitrione. I think the confidence of beating Fedor cannot be questioned. And I'm going to go with Matt Mitrione.
It could be one of them where Roy Nelson is chasing for the overhand right for three rounds, I assume. Maybe 5 rounds. 3 rounds, I think.
I like both of them, though.
Yeah, it could be one of them. He's chasing for the big overhand right.
I'm getting old in age, but sure, hey.
Yeah, hey.
That's it. That's what happens.
That's it.
Look at me. I used to be young one day. I didn't have to wear these glasses. I could see things because I was young. I didn't need to eat carrots or take cod liver oil or have a sore hip from running. These things happen, Rob, when you get old. You'll know about it in about 15 years, Rob, when you're in your 30s. A somber way to wrap up our breakdown from the weekend. But that's a way of breaking down the weekend with old age pension talk.
Yeah.
But it's been an absolute jam-packed show. As always, it was great to be back in studio. And that you don't have to look at the background and see what Noel's watching in the background, or if Rob's whey protein has finally finished. This
Still a little bit left.
Little drop left.
So
any sponsors there?
Left.
Bleeding lads, hook them up with some bleeding protein.
Yeah, come on, Soytech.
Bleeding
come on.
Hell.
Withering away here.
Feel Supreme, use Feel Supreme. UK. Yeah, they do. Big shout out to feelsupreme.uk. Go check them out for everything you need, and use the code FIGHTTALK at the end, and you get 10% off to Fight Store Ireland, the Fighter's Choice and Rival podcast. Go check them out, the Sunday Roast. Big shout out to them, and they are working on our t-shirts. They don't know when they're coming. And to MMAmix.com, they're obviously good because they're with, obviously, Fight Talk. Big shout out and thank you to all our guests today, and thank you for listening. If you've already stayed with us, or if you're already gone, you're not hearing this, but hit subscribe, go review us on iTunes, do all that. It really helps the show grow, and we appreciate it. We might be back, I'm not too sure this week if we're doing a live chat. Keep your eye out on our social media at @talk_fight on Twitter, obviously Fight Talk everywhere else.
Subscribe on YouTube and you'll be notified. Do you know what actually to do? Click the little bell. There's a little bell somewhere down there.
Yeah, that makes it
and that pops it up.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been O'Keefe. He's been Palin.
Thanks, man.
You've been you. See you next week.